Time to take a look at what's making headlines. And my panel today consists of Philip Magal, who's a lawyer, Joy Brenda Midibo, who's an advocate, as well as Mark Bichachi, communication consultant. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, let's start off.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys. Let's start off with the Daily Nation. MCAs throw Sonko under the bus, and we are told leaders drop plan to form an ad hoc committee to oversee the running of the capital in an absence of embattled governor who has been barred from his office over corruption allegations. This is a developing story, and clearly things are not getting better for Sonko. So what do you feel about this one, Philip?
Yeah, and things are definitely not getting better for Nairobi residents. Like Obama once said, was it Obama? Choices have consequences.
Right.
You know,
It was Ambassador
the
Carson.
city is on autopilot. Things are bound to get worse. I'm told revenue collection has greatly suffered. Of course, Sonko has brought all this onto himself. Jubilee has brought itself to this point. The MCAs. My main issue is with the MCAs.
How come?
It is upon them to put this city back on track. They are constitutionally mandated to oversight the executive. And if their governor has been charged with corruption, I wonder why to date there has been no impeachment motion moved against him.
Right.
Is it that they have been compromised? Is it that they don't know what they ought to do? Or is it that, you know, of course they cannot run they cannot set up a ad hoc committee to run the city. And the plan, that organ, is it Nairobi Regeneration Organization? I don't think it also has the mandate to run this city.
Right.
The only way to put it in order is to have this man impeached, get him out of office, let us elect a new governor as soon as possible.
And this committee would comprise of national and county government leaders. It is co-chaired by Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala and the governor, and has been involved in cleanup of Nairobi River. I mean, is it even clean though?
Where do they get where do they get their mandate?
They've been cleaning it. This is news.
I cross over the Nairobi River at in Kibera as I come over to this side of to the Ngong Road side of town, and it doesn't look very clean.
Which parts have they been cleaning?
I mean, apart from what late Mishuki did that looked like it had some traction, what we've had since then is a lot of lip service. But that aside, I agree with what Magal has said. We are here because Jubilee as a party did not rein in their rogue governor early enough. When he fired his deputy governor, that was a time to sit down and tell him, okay, quick, how are you sorting this out? We are here because the Senate, when they are playing their oversight role and having a committee to talk to Governor Sonko and find out what are you planning with Nairobi, they allowed him to come with his theatrics and sideshows and sort of railroad the process and leave them there looking like they did not know what they were doing. We are here because the MCAs were happy collecting their little handouts every weekend, that they forgot that their role was to oversee the work of the governor and to keep him in check as he's running Nairobi County. We are here because we have got voters who keep giving Governor Sonko the enthusiasm to keep doing what he does and cheering him on because yeye ni sauti ya mnyonge. This is a collective failure. And I've opined before that Nairobi is too important a center to be left to chance. And there's been criticism that this is the government doing a backdoor coup to take over Nairobi city because, after all, we are generating a lot of the revenue in this country in Nairobi. Okay. And right now, this looks like it is falling in place. I think I had, I think it was Miss Say who said it on one of your shows here. And she said, by the way, let's not be surprised if this is government taking over Nairobi. And right now, I don't think that that is such a bad idea because with Nairobi voters behaving how we have behaved, what guarantees there even if we go to an election to look for a new governor, we will not land with the same sort of mess. So in this particular instance, Nairobi is in it both feet. We have stepped in it both feet. And now we have to find a way of getting out of this quicksand because Nairobi is too important a center to be left to chance like this. We cannot continue running like this. I mean, water rationing in the wake of floods, water rationing, really, why are we there if it's not cartels? There's ridiculousness going on.
Absolutely, yeah. The banks, the dams are almost losing their walls, but at the same time, there's no water running in our taps. I mean, it's ironical. And some actually argue that it started off with the party that gave him the ticket to run in the first place, and that's where the rain started beating us. So it boils down to a kind of democracy. Mark, what's your take on this?
First and foremost, this is a classic case of how the saying "let the mud run with the ticket." That's what happened, and the truth is, from the beginning, the writing was on the wall. This was never going to go well. It never was. There was no chance in hell or in heaven that Sonko would have done right by this city. That, let's just be clear. And how you know he didn't want to do right by this city? Any leader who does not provide provision for him being replaced, any leader that does not think about how a county or a country will be in their absence is a leader that really does not care for that county. But secondly, we need to understand that everything that Sonko has done to date was in a strategic way to ensure that, number one, if he was ever caught in trouble, he would not be arrested because everyone would be afraid of what would happen. Yeah, so that's he orchestrated it. That's why he used to frustrate Speaker Elachi. That's why he never nominated a deputy governor, so that we would get here and people will try to defend him, saying that if you arrest him, it is tantamount to a coup in Nairobi County. That's exactly what he wanted, and the people who keep saying that are people who are perpetuating what Sonko wants to hear. Because the truth of the matter, imagine if you're sitting in central government and your DCI comes and tells you that a particular governor is basically running an extortion ring where for contracts he gets backdoor money. And then you are told, here's a warrant for his arrest. Now, will you not arrest him because he doesn't have a deputy governor or the speaker has issues within the county assembly? What is right must be done. As they say, though the heavens may fall, the law must be done. That's what must happen. Now, the reality of the matter is, what the MCAs have said is what the Constitution says. In extraneous circumstances, the president has the power to call for an ad hoc committee, not an ad hoc committee, it's actually a county management committee, that will take over the running of the county for 3 months until the people go back to vote. Now, the truth is, we do not have a constitutional change that makes Nairobi not a county. So whether the government likes it or not, it only has 90 days to run Nairobi, after which the people of Nairobi will most likely choose another Sonko. So let's not say there is a coup happening, because 90 days does not amount to a coup.
It is strategic, and it would be a plan.
And it's constitutional.
And it's constitutional. Now, the story on the top page of the Standard is taking a look at the journey of Raila Odinga, and the title is Race Against Time. Now, they're looking at his father, Jaramogi, came very close to ascending to presidency, and then Jomo Kenyatta did it at 72, and Raila just turned 75. They're asking, is this his best dance yet? And I mean, interesting question right here, because he has tried over and over again. Philip, what do you make of this story?
To me, whether Raila ascends to the high office or not really is inconsequential. The man has done what many have only dreamt of achieving. He's the one who's taken this country to where it is today, almost sole-handedly. If you remember the clamor for multipartyism, if you remember the role he played in the promulgation of the new constitution, the role he's played in devolution, I mean, we owe all that to him, and the man should be given credit. This is an example of a leader, not of a boss, a man who's been capable of transforming this country, transforming the society without necessarily holding a high office. And I think this is what we should all aspire for, being able to transform the communities in which we live without necessarily holding, you know, from our everyday station in life. You should be able to plant that tree. You should be able not to litter your streets. You should be able not to insult your neighbor. You should be able to report that terrorist whom you know is operating and within your vicinity without necessarily having to be paid for it, having to have traditional dancers dancing for you, and so on and so forth. If he ascends to office, well and good, he deserves it. If he doesn't, I think he'll still go down as one of the greatest national leader and an African statement the world has seen.
Absolutely. And we have on page 2 of the Standard, we're being told 71 was when President Mwai Kibaki's age when he took power. Then 72 Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, 76 South Africa's Nelson Mandela, and 92 is when Malaysian President Mahathir Mohamad took power. Then we have Winston Churchill at 71, and when he became Prime Minister of the UK. But all these leaders have significant tenures, and they're remembered even to date, even though they were quite old. So I don't think the age thing matters. I think it's the quality of the leadership. What do you think?
In fact, it's something that we've been seeing perpetuated in the last few years, sort of ageism. When we were writing, for example, the Constitution, one of the things we did is that we said that judges must retire at the age of 70. If we look at other jurisdictions, at the age of 70, you're practically a baby. If you're serving in the Supreme Court in the United States, you serve until when you're done. No, when you're done, because there's some who get to a place where they're like, I've had enough. The idea that people get to a place where they're too old to give back to society is actually a form of discrimination. As far as I'm concerned, there are certain things that come with age that education cannot buy. There's no degree that can give you the wisdom that comes with age. And Honorable Raila is a perfect example of that, because the political agility and limberness that he has displayed is because he knows how to maneuver some of his younger competitors. The longevity, the fact that he's able to sit at a table with lawyers like Akina Wetangula, and by the time he's done with them, he's leaving them dizzy, wondering what just happened. That gives you something that experience that education cannot give you. But in Kenya, we've gotten to a place, especially with government positions, where everything is about you must have this masters and that masters and how much education and how much experience, that we get to a place where, and then when you get to a certain age cap, we don't want you serving anymore. That we lose a lot in terms of that which you cannot be taught, that which you learn
because
by
you're
yourself.
writing people
and
off.
If the comparisons that you've given with other jurisdictions goes by, like the Malaysian one, I actually got into a place like, you know what, I'm done with politics. The youngsters take over, mess up the country, like, guess what? Who's coming back out like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego out of the fire? Like, you know what, I am not yet out of this world, so I'm not yet done. Maybe as a society, we need to come to a place where we reevaluate the value we have over old people contribution. I mean, with the president appointing old people everywhere, I mean, old people, quote unquote, have taken a bashing, but there is wisdom in age. And if we look at this, the caption is his best dance yet to come, you would be a fool to discount him because he's 75, he's too old. Even that talk of he's too young, where do you want him to go? Every station in life, you have something to contribute, and make your contribution while you can. And I join issue with what Philip said. Even if he decides he's not doing anything else, you will not write Kenya's history and not write about Honorable Raila Odinga. It's completely impossible.
Absolutely. Mark, what do you think?
I have a simple question. Is there any politician in Kenya who's as powerful as Raila without an office? Everyone else needs the army and the police and everything for them to have the kind of clout that Raila Odinga has.
This is true.
Love him or hate him, Raila Odinga is one of the most, if not the most significant politician of the last 20 years of Kenyan history. And Magali is correct. Raila Odinga does not need to lift a finger for him to have a significant chapter in the book called The History of Kenya. But I would like to address the issue of ageism in this country. Let me tell you something. Just because you are 26 does not make you better than someone who's 76. Because there's this idea that keeps being bandied around by people who are my age, who are saying, oh my goodness, why didn't you hire someone who's younger to do X, Y, Z? Let me tell you for free. I look back at a 30-year-old me, and I'm like, you know what? I thank God I didn't do some of the things I'm doing now. And this is just 5 years later. Because the truth of the matter is there are certain things that you gain only by experience. You can study economics and, by the way, get a first-class honors. But I dare you to sit in a meeting with Mwai Kibaki, who's now in his 80s, if he's not hit 90 yet, and see whether you can do microeconomics better than him. And this is the issue. You see, You cannot discount someone until nature and God discounts them. If we were saying that an old person is not lucid, is no longer coherent, we cannot understand what he's saying, then let's discuss them not being able to lead. But look at Bernie Sanders. Right? He's not a spring chicken.
No.
But look at how revolutionary his mind is.
Yeah.
He speaks with a passion that 18-year-olds in this country don't have. Unless we're going to use Instagram as a measure for passion for this country, which is not there. So the truth of the matter is this. Raila Odinga, to me, does not need to ascend to the presidency for him to be considered a great leader.
Yeah.
If he does ascend to the presidency, it will be announced jewel for his already bedazzled crown. But to count him out,
that would be a mistake. Philip, I thought you had a thought.
I think this photo to our left in black and white is really one of the most iconic photos since our fight for independence. I think it is the most iconic photo since that one of Dedan Kibaki where he lays captured in bed. You know, people are now comparing Raila and Miguna, and people are giving Miguna credit for shouting at the airport. I mean, this man spent 12 years in prison. And after coming out, he was again thrown back in prison. And, you know, he's paid dearly.
He's paid the price
for what we enjoy today.
Right.
He's paid dearly for the freedom that Miguna is today able to enjoy, to insult him, to insult the president, and any other person that he cares to, you know, comes across and insults. And credit to him, really.
For what he did politically speaking for the country. Now, there's another story that is making headlines across board, the NHIF story. NHIF releases new tough rules on health services. If you are a voluntary contributor, don't even think of defaulting. And that is a story that is cutting across. I think it's also on, it's the top page on the Business Daily. We're told NHIF's 6,000 rule to hurt Uhuru Kenyatta's healthcare agenda. And self-employed Kenyans will have to pay that 6,000 before starting to use their NHIF cards. What do you make of this? Because we are having problems with our healthcare and accessing healthcare, and then we have now these rules that are making it
let me just speak of a personal experience. The organization for which I work gave us NHIF corporate cover. And I once suffered from dental issues, and I went around this city looking for a dentist that accepts NHIF cover. I started at TRM Mall. I came to the CBD. I came all the way through Mombasa Road and Jogo Road, went to Buruburu, and you know, eventually I just had
traverse
to
the city.
Eventually I had to dip into my pocket and pay somebody for the job.
Which is not cheap.
Yes, and I pay a lot for it. Without even delving into what the paper says, again, there's the issue to do with other than the acceptance of the card, there is the issue to do with the remittance by employers to NHIF. You know, you are given a card by NHIF. You go to hospitals, they cannot accept it because NHIF is not paying. It's not paying the service providers. But at the other end, the employers are actually not paying NHIF. They're not making remittances to NHIF. So this universal healthcare thing, if the president doesn't take care, as it is with the case with most of his other legacies, is bound to come up proper.
You agree with the assertion on the Business Daily, it's going to hurt his healthcare agenda? Joy, what do you think?
Because when I saw this, especially the issue about you have to pay the 6,000 upfront, the reason why it was made 500 bob a month is that you're able to afford it. If you're earning a daily wage, having 6,000 bob just sitting on the table waiting to be spent is not something that happens for you every day. I mean, for most of those guys, they have to have a special team where they drop in the rent every month. Because if he even just leaves it to chance, it will get to end month and he doesn't have enough rent. So telling him to come up with a 6,000 bob better go is tantamount to telling him, you know what, this is not yours anymore, it belongs to the rich people. And that goes against what we're trying to do with covering everybody universally. You know, the confusion we had was that universal healthcare and NHIF are actually two different programs altogether. Universal healthcare is a program by government to ensure that services are available, are affordable, are accessible to all Kenyans, wherever they are. So that is putting down infrastructure. It's training enough people. It's sending them where they need to go. NHIF cover now is insurance. It's something totally different.
Yeah.
But here we are trying to make them both into one thing. Remember, for a long time, NHIF has been a dipping pool for politicians to get random money when things go bad.
Yeah.
With the economy being where it is, and you start seeing taxes popping up and here out of everywhere, and then now you see
the patriotism.
It just tells you that the government is also desperately trying to fund some of these traditional dipping pools because even they are running low. That for me sounds a it sounds an alarm bell. Is the NHIF in trouble? If you talk to, like Magala said, if you talk to the small providers who tell you we accept NHIF, the services being offered are becoming less and less and less. Before you could get lab, you could get what? You get to a place that like, you know what, for lab we'll only give you this, 1, 2, 3. If you want other lab work, that one you're paying upfront. Why? Because they're also not getting paid by NHIF because they're paid on capitation. They say, you guys, you see around 50 people, so we'll give you 500 per patient, so we'll give you this much and we'll pay you in advance. Then NHIF doesn't do that. So people come, you spend your money to treat them, then you're waiting for money for 6 months.
That doesn't show.
And you're supposed to be in business. So we have to have an audit of this system, how it works. If we want people to have insurance, and make it accessible and make it workable, there has to be a way of ring-fencing NHIF funds to benefit NHIF organizations. There's been the issue also of people misusing the fund, going to private hospitals, running up all these bills, and private hospitals are getting a larger payout out of NHIF than public installations. That's completely wrong. If you're a private hospital, get money from Akina Magal who can afford it, and those who need public installations, let them benefit from their 500 bob a month. We have to rethink the system because as far as I'm concerned, if we mismanage NHIF, and UHC does not take off the way, right now it's still teetering on we are not too sure that will catch on. In the next like 5 years, we'll be worse off in terms of access to healthcare than we have, and yet we have made significant strides. So this is one of those areas where I think there should be no gambling. Let's ring fence NHIF funds and just make the system work. It can work. It has worked for a little while. It can work again.
Now we're told, there's a breakdown on the fees. We're told monthly payments of 500 shillings has been scrapped. Members will pay 6,000 upfront to get cover for a year. And then defaulters will pay a fine of 250 for each of the 11 months defaulted and wait for another 30 days to resume their benefits. And illnesses don't wait for you. So while those 30 days are going by, what's going to be happening to you? And then before I get to you, Mark, we have defaulters are told for more than 11 months will be treated like new members with a waiting period of 90 days.
First, you know, healthcare is one of those things that if we don't get right as a country, we'll never get out of poverty. Let me put it to you in perspective. Whether you have secondary insurance, your APAs, your Jubilee, and whatever, I dare you to be hospitalized in ICU and still come out a week in ICU at the same economic status you are, not as an individual, as a family. The truth of the matter is the bill in ICU at 500,000 or something like that per day, if you multiply that over 30 days, your insurance of 3 million inpatient is gone. Let's just be clear. If we don't figure out healthcare, with the increasing rates of cancer, the increasing rates of other diseases born out of the lifestyles we have now, then we are telling a nation that your healthcare is the greatest risk to leading you to poverty that exists. And that is a serious macroeconomic issue. Secondly, Magal has talked about NHIF not being acceptable. I will have him know that other insurance policies, APA and Jubilee and whatever, are not universally acceptable either. Let's just be honest. And that tells you that the insurance sector in this country has a problem. Whether it's accident payouts for your car or claims against life insurance, there is a serious issue of fraud on both ends of the spectrum that is affecting insurance in this country. I'll give you an example. To be honest with you, where I live, there's a Catholic mission hospital, okay? And when I go to that hospital, and they don't accept any card, so you've got to pay cash. When I go to that hospital, when I'm done with everything, tests, lab work, and medicine, I pay 2,000 shillings. When I go to my card to another hospital, yeah, I am paying 2,000 shillings consultation fee.
Yeah.
And then I'm paying 3,000 CG for which test. That tells me, why is the Catholic Mission Hospital able to give me services at 2,000 shillings and yet another hospital will bill NHIUF 15,000 shillings to treat the same malady? It is fraud. It is fraud. And that's really where they're not addressing the issue. They're not addressing the issue that, number one, Medicare is unnecessarily expensive for those who have cards, right? It is inflated. They're not addressing the issues that these hospitals we see have a retention quota for doctors to tell them that, listen, out of every 10 patients you see, please make sure you hospitalize 7 with cards so that we can give them a necessary oxygen and necessary medication just so that they can be make a profit. That is what is ailing the medical system. It's being run like a cartel. And as long as the Ministry of Health is not willing to look itself in the mirror and realize that, listen, I'll give you a true story, real life story. A friend of mine, the sister was diagnosed with cancer and she needed to go for radiotherapy. This is in December. And the doctor who was referring them told them, if you go to Kenyatta National Hospital and not book yourself into the private wing, your sister will not get Medicare. But if you book yourself in private wing, the same oncologist who is too busy and on holiday on the public side will come see you on the private side, because each time he sees you, it's 3,000 shillings per day. For as long as we run healthcare the same way we run matatus in this country, we have a big problem. So NHIF, whether you say 90 days waiting period, 6,000 shillings to pay, that's not your problem. Your problem is not the small Kenyan who needs to pay 500 shillings per month, because I can tell you for free, that Kenyan, when he needs healthcare, he is desperate enough to pay. Your problem is, what are you paying? On the other side, how are you dealing with cartels, and how are you streamlining your systems within yourself? Where are you keeping the money so that you make sure you're not holding people's money for 6 months? That's where the issue is. And if the government does not wake up and smell the coffee, let me tell you, that legacy for healthcare will be as dead as a dodo.
Okay.
And, just to emphasize that point, you know, this topic that we are now discussing, healthcare, it is what the UK election turned on. It is what the American election will turn on this year.
Yes.
It is something really, really significant. It's something that we ought to think about. Why is the NHIF spending so much money on private hospitals instead of complementing the public health system? They can put in ICU systems, they can put in cheaper doctors, they can put in cheaper medication, get to save quite a lot, improve the national health care. And by the way, Kenyans, this is more important than Miguna coming back into this country.
And you know, there's something else I also must underpin. If you study countries that have gotten it right with healthcare, if you look at a country like Cuba, if you look at India, one of the things that it's so simple, it's ridiculous. Two things that they've done that have worked for them. One is that they've put their people first. So they've not remained beholden to pharmaceutical cartels. So they generate their medicine at a fraction of the price. So you're not beholden to the GlaxoSmithKlines and the AstraZenecas of this world. You decide, you know what, it is paracetamol, it's an ibuprofen, what's the composition? How do we make it here? Ourselves. And they've been taken to court, wherever, and they're like, you know what, we have got 1 billion people to treat, and we're going to don't care. That's one thing. Another thing that they do is they invest heavily in training many doctors. In Kenya, we still have that one little med school in UON. You've got smatterings here and that. We are not deliberate about training enough personnel to handle the population that we have. There are those who are not quite doctors, but they're clinical officers who can offer primary health care, you know, just diagnose the little bits and pieces. We don't invest as much in that. You go to KMTC sometimes and you find it's people who go there don't have the passion for medicine. So there are guys who I need to learn a little bit and wear a lab coat and go defraud people. Let's get to a place where we just have enough doctors, like Cuba. That's why they're exporting doctors to us. It's because doctors are a dime a dozen.
Yeah,
if we have doctors, as many doctors as we have lawyers, in Kenya, though we keep churning out lawyers every year,
right.
we will get to a place where we've got enough doctors and we produce up to industrial area, enough cheap drugs to actually solve this
Cater
thing
to
once.
the people.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a short